setting up my little apartment, if you will. Really just converted garage in my mom's house today after being not misplaced. Oh, what's the word? Whatever. Kind of made to leave on spur of the moment. This is Ethan. He died about 10 years ago. He was a little older than in this picture. He was about 1.5 years when he died during his nap. That was super hard. I found him. He kind of got entrapped in the bunk bed. He was my first climber. He was my first of all of these kids. That's him there too. And this is him. My daughter and I used to make these little bibs to sell at the farmer's market. But Ethan got entrapped in his bunk bed. He was on the bottom bunk and there was side railings and he had been in there for months. But what changed is that the little one about 1.5 years older than him who's now like 12, would have stopped taking a nap, and so he was in the room by himself, and he crawled through the end of the wood bunk bed. It was like a big chunky kind, store-bought kind, and these are some pictures of my other kids. It's not everybody, but and some homemade tinctures. Anyway, I'm just telling you the story about Ethan. So he crawled through foot first on the end of the bunk bed, and he could not touch the bottom, and he couldn't get back the way he'd come. And he was napping, but apparently he hadn't napped that day. And I guess he had soiled his diaper, and so he wasn't in the mood for going to sleep. We were used to putting him down for his nap and him sleeping for 1.5 hours. I wasn't inclined to listen to my intuition back then. I have always had a strong intuition. I was unpacking little Amish kind of clothing. I was real caught up for a while, thinking that the further you got away from like civilization, I know it sounds so freaking crazy, it's because of my crazy background, but I got caught up in these church circles that were like, long dresses, sort of like the way my daughter here, Galena, thankfully now wears shorts and bikinis, and is much more normal. Yay! This is a couple years ago this picture was taken, and she's wearing like her hair back and a homemade dress, and it's kind of Amishy, but it's called Mennonite. Anyway, so my son Ethan, who's not alive anymore, well, he's not here. I don't believe in heaven, but I'm starting to believe that maybe we do come back. And anyway, he got trapped. He was about 1/2 inch from touching the floor with his feet. I was downstairs unpacking some little Amish clothes and getting ready to wash them. I bought them online secondhand. I was so excited to start putting him in these little plain, as they call them, plain clothing. It's all ridiculous, I know. I don't think it's my fault that he died, but I very strongly kept feeling this call to go check on him. And let me just tell you, when I did finally go check on him, and I didn't do it in a timely manner according to my intuition, I did it more in hand with what his normal nap schedule would be. And I found him. The shades were drawn so it was dark in the room, and I couldn't tell at first that anything was wrong. I said, "Oh, you're waiting for mommy." But he was dead. I still didn't know that right away. I freed him easily. I just had to turn his head, but he kind of hung, so he had this mark. He had this mark here on his chin, and his lips had started to turn, I guess, like kind of bluish. And when I freed him, I laid him back, like carrying him the way, he was 1.5 years, like the way you would carry a baby or, a person like laying on his back. When I laid him on his back, at the time I thought that he had breathed, like that maybe his breathing was irregular, but what had happened was that was just like the last wind in him. And so I had a lot of hope that he was alive and everything was going to be okay. I rushed downstairs, his dad took him out of my arms. His dad went to the hospital, and I followed behind with like wallets and stuff. This is like 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. I'd have to think about it. But so yeah, so that's Ethan. I also had another son. He died. They did try to resuscitate him, but he was already dead, I believe, now when I found him. I also had another son that died at birth. His name was Reuben. I named him Reuben. That was hard. That came first. So that would have been, let's see, so I hadn't had Galena yet. I had Layden. Layden is now 19, almost 20. This is several years ago, so he's younger in this picture. he goes to the Mennonite church and stuff, and he doesn't really like me at all right now. He thinks I'm tearing up the home, and a lot of the older kids think I'm making the wrong decision. But anyway, Layden would have been like, 1.5 maybe, and I was pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant, and I ended up going into labor and losing the baby. They actually were able to stop labor for a week, and I was in the hospital with the bed, with my head like the bed, like to even help gravity, like the head of the bed, down, and my feet, like the foot of the bed up, to even help gravity, to help this baby to stay inside of me. And I'd had surgery, and it was a lot. And I was, let's see, how old would I have been? Let's see, I think I was 26 when I had Layden, so I was probably 27 or so. So it's pretty young. And I ended up going into labor, and the baby's heart was strong, and nothing was wrong with him while he was in the womb, but his lungs weren't developed enough to survive outside of the womb. And I have experienced quite a bit of loss in my life. I don't say that as like a pity party. All of these things have only strengthened me. Don't know why I need to be so strong. I've often felt like, why, and that probably is a little bit still self-pity, but like, especially when I was a Christian, I would kind of say, like, God, like, why do I have, like, I feel like more than my share of super big trials. I know we all have, whether you're spiritual, religious, or none of the above, an atheist, we all have things we deal with. We all have difficulties in life. Life is going to not just be this easy, whatever. But at the same time, I mean, it's been so many things. And even back then, I would have been experiencing domestic abuse, but once again, it was very hidden. And when my soon-to-be ex was Navy, active duty Navy still, and he would have been like gone on deployments and stuff, I feel like there were just a lot of years that it wasn't near as bad. So it is what it is, and I have peace in my heart today as I've been displaced from the marital home and from my kids. It's okay. It makes me think about, all the people who've gone through something similar before, and we don't really give it any thought, right? Like, sort of like if we were maybe getting like a major accident or something and like lose our legs. Like, you probably don't go around thinking what people who are handicapped in that major way live life like, or if you have like a child who's special needs, like on the spectrum of maybe very special needs. Like, until you have that, and I haven't had a child like that, but like until you have that experience, you don't really maybe think about it too much. Most of us don't. So it takes going through things, or maybe having close friends or family going through something like the death of a child, for example. I think that's just human nature. We just take things for granted. Like I might be technically homeless now, but I'm here at my mom's house and I have somewhere very comfortable to lay my head tonight. It won't be, with my children, like in the home with my kids, and who knows if the ex's move in this department will ensure him having, being able to keep the kids and keep them from like him having full custody or whatever. Who knows? But I'm just saying that I haven't been homeless, right? Like on the streets and stuff. Until we experience something, we might, if we are empathic like I am, we might think about these things at least from a more of an abstract way. Like, I wonder what that would be like. Like, I hate to see like the people who are panhandling, and I feel like they have nice sneakers on, and I feel like they're really just, if they truly are living on the streets, they're living on the streets because that's what they want to do, and they're making a lot of money panhandling every day, and they're choosing to not work. That's a little bit different than being displaced, like maybe vets or something, like that are truly homeless. And anyway, I think that it's good for us to, it's not fun when trials happen, but I'm handling the situation today, I think, fairly well. It's hit me a couple times, and I've kind of broken down with tears for just a few minutes. And I think that's a good way to process. I think that's not a bad thing. I feel like I have a lot of peace, like an underpinning of peace, and I know that, I'm going to be fine. My kids are going to be fine. My concern for them would be more and more trauma, because the situation is more, it's worse than it appears to be on a surface level. But some of these things just will play out and present like they do in other cases. And we all have childhood trauma to varying degrees, and I think my childhood trauma has probably impacted me for longer than maybe some people. Like, it was pretty extreme, and you know, I'm just now like in the last couple of years kind of like making some headway from the trauma that I experienced. Um, and I repeated the pattern of domestic abuse. And so I don't want that for my kids. I don't want them to repeat these patterns. I don't want them to be abusers, or to accept it as normal. So all these things, but I just think that we would do well to think about things. And yeah, so here I am setting up my little, room. And I mean, I feel like this is probably better than staying at the shelter, and I know it is. And yeah, it has its own challenges, but I'm just glad to have somewhere. So have a good day.